In the metaverse, Mark Zuckerberg's stubbornness could very likely cause Meta to crash. The champion of social network stock drifted off course at the start of Wall Street by over 25%, dropping below the figurative price threshold of $100 per share. A disaster for a share that in September 2021 was still worth $370. It's unusual for huge corporations with a market capitalization of $10 billion or more to lose more than 70% of their value in a single year. The loss of more than $700 billion in market cap experienced by Meta platforms over the course of the past year was nearly unheard of. Let's find out why Meta dropped 70%. From mass layoffs to ineffective business models, the Metaverse project and a declining stock price of their most recent financial report indicated a 52% decline in their quarterly net profit. If nothing changes, it appears that the corporation that everyone loves to despise will face major difficulties. Meta had a worth of almost $1 trillion less than a year ago. It's only worth about a third of that now. In other words, the decline has been so sharp that the stock price has returned to January 16, 2016. If you made investments at that time in the right amounts without taking profits, you lost money. Meta has had the worst performance of any stock in the S&P 500 this year, with a decline of 70%. Rise of the King. We need to look back to the year 2005 to get a better understanding of why Meta is failing. During this period, Mark Zuckerberg got support from Facebook's then-president, Sean Parker, in negotiating Silicon Valley and acquiring full control of the business. Sean would advise Zuckerberg on how to structure the business such that he would effectively rule as king. Even the board of directors had to submit to his authority. The company would suffer as a result of this dictatorship. In the year 2010, customers began switching from computers to cell phones. Mark Zuckerberg believed that Facebook could have been a bigger participant in the hardware market even though it had made adjustments. Oculus. In 2013, Facebook attempted to release its own smartphone, but the public rejected it. Mark required a change of strategy, and he discovered it in the year 2014. Zuckerberg was convinced after viewing an Oculus demo, the future of computing, in his opinion, would be in virtual reality. Then, after investing $10 billion annually in research to realize his vision, he would buy Oculus for $2 billion. And this is where one of the main problems was, because Mark was the company's king and no one could stop him, even if they thought it was a horrible idea. However, we believe that the trajectory of technology as a whole is one that will inevitably lead to the mainstream adoption of a metaverse environment, a virtual world where an online life is lived in virtual reality. But there's a catch. This future is still 5 years away or 15 years. Meta might be able to hold off and write it out if it's 5 years distant. However, if it's 15 years away, there is a significant issue. And shareholders won't put up with it. Investors may fear that Zuckerberg is relying too heavily on something for which the world isn't quite ready. This problem was solved by Apple with the iPhone. Here, Meta isn't quite at the same level, at least not yet. In terms of hardware, they're making some interesting advancements and have sold over 10 million VR headsets, which is respectable but not outstanding. Horizon Worlds, the company's flagship metaverse offering, looks terrible from a software perspective. One will find it hard to imagine that this cost over $15 billion to build. We believe Zuckerberg is right when he predicts that VR technology will bring people together in a manner that previous technologies just cannot. But there is simply a ton of work to be done. According to Lucky Palmer, Horizon Worlds is a poor product that isn't fun. It's terrible today, but it could be amazing in the future. Considering how much fun it was, Doom was the first game ever played on the original Oculus VR headset. In addition, the vice president of Horizon Worlds left in August 2022. Investors have noticed that it doesn't give off the best impression of behind-the-scenes activity. The American powerhouse, which was still seen a year and a half ago as an unstoppable machine to produce ever more profits, now generates 98% of its revenue from targeted advertising campaigns. Mark Zuckerberg now acknowledges that for the past 12 months, the average cost of a message posted on its platforms has dropped by 18%. We must go back to 2008 in order to completely understand this. Sheryl Sandberg, a former Google ad executive, will join Facebook as COO this year. She would counterbalance Mark's careless approach in those early days, but she also played a crucial role in developing the elements that would launch Facebook into space. Based on personal user data, extremely effective advertising. Early employees were wealthy because it worked so well. Consumers suffered, but it was good for wallets. Users disliked it to the core when they saw they were being taken advantage of, but it made no difference because the business was flush with cash. Although unaware of it, with its data collection being compromised, Meta was now open to attack from any outside source, and in 2021, this is precisely what occurred. Apple's strengthening of privacy protection. Tim Cook would need iPhone customers to have the option to turn off their ad targeting, and Meta would lose billions. Apple's strengthening of privacy protection options for iPhone owners. These restrictions hurt Facebook, whose business model is built on what has long been regarded as an unparalleled ability to track the activities and interests of smartphone users. The worst of this handicap, in Mark Zuckerberg's opinion, is behind us. The chief financial officer of Meta, David Wenner, claims that advertisers are now beginning to switch to Google. Everything was now exposed and subject to open examination due to vaporized profits. In all honesty, Meta is a corporation that isn't developing its main products. User experience and user interface improvements are put off until later. However, Meta concentrates on taking other features from other platforms and integrating them into Instagram, including Reels from TikTok. However, facing off against one of the top social media algorithms on the planet is a difficult undertaking. This stage is obviously finished for Facebook, which for its first 10 years, when it was Facebook, used to innovate in the social media space. Sheryl Sandberg, the company's longtime CEO and purportedly the adult in the room, left Meta in early 2022. Mark Zuckerberg is currently a monarch without any restraints. Facebook has fired 11,000 employees, or 30% of its workforce, even though high-risk investments like big tech are being devastated by increased borrowing rates. Any stock that experiences a 70% annual decline is nothing short of a disaster. According to Zuckerberg, excessive investment was the problem. He doesn't appear to think investors would be concerned about doubling down on the Metaverse. He would assure investors that he believed the COVID-related e-commerce boom would be sustained on November 10th. Controversies. Zuckerberg consequently boosted his assets greatly, but things didn't turn out as planned. Online sales have not only resumed their previous patterns, but also substantially lower revenue than anticipated due to the macroeconomic slump, greater competition, and added signal loss. In addition to its financial problems, Meta is under investigation by the FTC and other congressmen. Antitrust is coming and could either cause the company to be broken up or make it more difficult for them to just acquire businesses as they could in the past. We also don't need to mention all the controversies, such as the Cambridge Analytica data leaks on societal division and mental health. The changing demographics also don't help. Despite the fact that older individuals often have more money, according to Kevin Ross of the New York Times, advertisers prefer to target the younger group. Considering that Meta already has two companies, Mark might choose to accept this. One company focuses solely on technology and aims to build the Metaverse, while the other is a social networking and advertising company that no longer has its CEO's attention. Perhaps it's time to have the social media component operated by a separate CEO as a true business. It has been suggested by a number of people that this is not such a crazy concept. Like Professor Scott Galloway, who foresaw this development, it's abundantly obvious in his book The Big Four that the collapse of big tech benefits business. The fact that Meta still has close to 4 billion customers is its lone saving grace. There is a great opportunity for improvement. Subscribe for more content just like this one and share it with your friends. Also, don't forget to smash that like button and also press the bell icon to be notified about our new videos. See you in the next one.